this is my take on making a Power Specter guide. We run Chrono Rune, we run Air Hydro on Sword Dagger, and we run Sigil of Stars as a stacking sigil on DP, and Hydro as well. I will put a build link in the description for the actual gear, what I run, etc. So the difference with Specter and other thief builds is that you have only 12 initiative, which is a little bit harder to use your weapon skills. And you also do not have like an instant steal, and it's more like Deadeye's Mark. You have a 1.2k range, but it has a cast time. So SD plays exactly the same as every other thief spec, right? You use it to poke to get reactions out of enemies, maybe a dodge, maybe some cooldowns, maybe they stealth up, etc. But that's the idea of Sword Dagger, right? You want to have distance, maybe some elevated ground, maybe behind a wall. The only difference with Spectre is that we can utilize wells to get further engage, since wells are actually a shadow step as well. So it's 600 plus the sword too, which is you can get quite a long range to port into enemies and surprise them. They will not expect it. So this is the first combo you want to learn, is that you cast the well, so we proc quickness, but then instantly after the well is casted you want to sword 2, which will make you port, and the well will actually not be placed where you casted it. It will actually follow your sword 2. So we cast the well and instantly sword 2. This will take a bit of practice to get used to. It's a little bit harder with ping as well. But instead of, for example, let's say we sword 2 into an enemy and we want to cloak and dagger. This is slow, right? The enemy will most likely react to this because we have no quickness. But if we cast a well and then sword 2 and then cloak and dagger and do the number 1 in the back, we will proc daze on them, which is one of the most common combos you do on SD. Since we run on swap sigils, we can proc it from Shroud. So what you can do is you can basically well, cloak and dagger, and then you enter Shroud and then you burst. The burst in Shroud is Shroud 2 and Shroud 4. Those are the main things that actually do damage. Shroud 4 is melee and Shroud 2 is actually an AoE that you can cast. It's 900 range, so you can actually like cast it like this and then boom. Shroud 5 is a stun that will proc after a while. It will give you stab as well. And then Shroud 3 is actually a fear, but it also gives you barrier, so it's actually quite nice to cast sometimes. It's also leap finisher, so it has some benefits for DP. Shroud 2 is also a blast, and Shroud 5 is also a blast. Now, the really good combo that you can do on enemies is the Elite and then Sword 2. If you know that the enemy has no stun break or they have no stability, no Aegis obviously, etc., and you're not blinded, what you can do is you cast the Elite, and then in the middle of the Elite cast you will Sword 2, so the Elite will actually land on the enemy. Then you will burst with you Elite, you Sword 2, you enter Shroud, you do 2 plus 4, and then you can basically leave Shroud, swap to DP, and then you just like Heartseeker, whatever, if they're still in the Elite, since you get quickness, which is very good for like auto attack, or I mean you can also stay on SD, you can cloak and dagger, and you can do the number 1 in the middle of the cast. So there's depending on what you fight. The reason why I like swapping to DP is because you can actually, like, let's say you want to stealth up after, you can like 5-2. So there's a little bit of different combos you can do. But so the main burst is if you land this is obviously very hard to land on classes with high amount of stun breaks. So you Elite, Sword 2, and then Sharp 2 plus 4. Then when it comes to DP, you do have some interesting combos with DP. This is basically, you can, DP is very versatile. You can use it offensively, you can use it defensively. The only good access to stealth we have is actually with DP. So if you fight other thieves, you need to have stealth, right? So let's say I'm playing SD only, and I fight the DP thief. I'm gonna have 0 chance of killing him. because SD does not have the amount of damage needed to kill a DP thief, because he can just stealth up, open on me whenever he wants to stealth up, open on me, rinse and repeat. So it's very hard to deal with other thieves that stealth up unless you have DP yourself. We are at a disadvantage because we have less initiative, as I said, so we can't stealth as much as they do. But here's where Shroud come in, very handy. So as I said, Shroud 2, Shroud 3, and Shroud 5 all make it possible to stealth. So what you can do is, for example, if you're dueling and you want to stealth long, you powder, and then you can Heartseeker. So you get a lot of stealth from doing this, and this makes it easier because you don't have to use as much initiative, for example. Another good thing is that the Shroud 2 blast will not reveal you, even if it does damage on enemies. So there's two combos you can do with it. It can also be used offensively, but let's say you're in a really like bad place. Let's say you have 3-4 people hugging you, and you're like, fuck, I have to stealth. Maybe you have very little initiative, so you don't have the time to powder and then Heartseeker. So you can maybe get it dropped or whatever, get CC'd in the middle of the cast. But if you drop the powder, you can enter Shroud and then Shroud 2. This will not reveal you even if you hit the enemies, right? And then you can run away in the meantime and stealth up again or whatever, Shadow Step, or if you have any other tool to disengage. The other option is that you can actually, if you're in Shroud already, you can Shroud 2 on top of yourself and then instantly powder. This also will take some practice, but this is two ways of using Shroud to stealth up, either outside of Shroud or inside of Shroud. And as I mentioned, you can use this combo also offensively. Let's say you are fighting an enemy, and then let's say you're in Shroud, you used your burst, you use like the fear, and then you get stunned, Shroud 2, and then powder, and you can instantly backstab the enemy. I think I can show again. So we go into Shroud 2, boom, and then instantly backstab. You can also obviously, as long as you know that you have procced Hydro, you can also, if you don't prefer to backstab, you can also instantly swap to SD and then do the number 1 2 days. Like, let's say we proc the Hydro here, Shroud 2, boom, and swap to SD days. So there's some nice combos you can do. But yeah, another good thing with SD that thieves don't really have, that Specter can do. Let's say an enemy is running into you all the time, so it's hard for you to get any value with Sword 2, right? Like Sword 2, you want to have distance, as I mentioned earlier. You want to port in, port out, port in, port out. But if they're hugging you, you can't really port, right? Like if I'm hugging a warrior and I have no Sword 2 return, it's hard for me to really, like, this would do nothing for me if I poured into him this close, right? Because I have no disengage space. What you can do is actually utilize the wells instead of actually porting into the enemies. I mean, you can also port into the enemies, but what you can do is you can cast the well further away and then Sword 2. But now you have the distance already. So you can do like, let's say you don't have a Sword 2 and something is hugging you, you well out, and then you can also do the same with the elite. Like you can Shadow Step, and then you can Sword 2 elite. Like, it was a bit delayed, but yeah, you get the point what you can do. But yeah, there's no real scenario where you should always play DP versus this. It takes some time to get used to it, and you will see the benefits of what weapon set when you want to. But the main idea is to get use of stealth when you're on DP. You want to get use of like headshotting. Let's say you fight a class that, okay, he's gonna heal, you can headshot. You have to be careful of initiative though, since you have less initiative. That's one thing. The thing that makes Specter very different from other Thief Spec is actually the high amount of sustain we have. And that comes from this trait, Traversing Dusk. Is basically every shadow step that you do which is Shadow Shot, for example. Sword 2 counts as a Shadow Step. Shadow Step itself. Wells are counted as Shadow Step. All of these will actually heal you. They will heal you, they will give you Shroud. So it's easy to sustain your Shroud. You see that I get Shroud. Initiative also gives you Shroud. F1 also gives you Shroud. So there's a lot of sources of getting Shroud. Can show you how much we can get. So we can steal. It's quite a lot of Shroud you get. But yeah, so you also get Alacrity from Wells, which is just a bonus. You can also heal allies with it. You can literally stand on top of an ally and just sword 2 spam if they have taken damage. It's not amazing heal, but it's a little bit like you can cast a well on top of them and sword 2 spam, and they get some heal. This build has one source of good Condi cleanse. We obviously have sword 2 with the return. It removes one Condi. It's quite an investment, and it takes time to cleanse with this, obviously. So if you fight a very heavy Condi class that can burst you with a lot of Condis, obviously you spamming sword 2 will make you go out of initiative, and you will never cleanse fast enough before you die. So we have Withdraw, which it doesn't really remove that many damaging Condis. Then obviously we have Shadow Step, but it's your only stun break, so it's not like you would prefer to blow this for 3 Condi cleanses. So this right here, Hungering Darkness, is your main cleanse. It will remove 1 Condi every 1 second. Every single Condi, right? Like it will cleanse damaging Condis and non-damaging Condis, as long as you're in Shroud. But since we don't have that much Shroud anymore, if you get heavy Condi bursted, your Shroud will deplete very, very quickly. The thing that makes this trait extremely strong, let's say I have 10k HP, and I don't fight a Condi class even. Let's say I fight a power class that will put vulnerability, blind, poison, and it doesn't know nothing, like bleed, whatever. This trait will heal my normal HP even when I'm in Shroud. It will heal 535 every Condi that I cleanse. So let's say I remove the trash Condis. It will basically give me like 3 Condis is 1.5k heal, right? And as I mentioned earlier, every sword 2, every well, every DP3, all of these will heal me. So it's a good chunk of sustain that you get. That's why we use the City of Stars, for example, to get. Specter benefits a lot from Selly stats, right? You get toughness, you get crit chance, you get ferocity, you get power. Healing power doesn't really scale that much, but you want to tank up because your Shroud scales with vitality. So that's the main idea of getting, like, using City of Stars and Silly Food. It's just to get more Shroud. And that's the good thing about Shroud as well, right? Like, even if you reach close to 15k with 25 stacks of City of Stars, and if you run full vitality infusions, you reach close to 15k Shroud. But Shroud is used to tank damage, but also do damage, right? So you getting used to when to leave Shroud is a very, very crucial part, right? Let's say you fight a Condi class, and you go into Shroud just to do damage, right? But then the guy Condi bombs you when you just left Shroud. That's when you're the most vulnerable to Condi damage. So you have to be aware that, oh shit, okay, I left Shroud now. Now I can't tank damage. But luckily, obviously, it's not that long cooldown to enter Shroud again. But it's just, you have to be careful because this is when you're the most vulnerable to both high burst damage and Condi burst. So it takes some time to get used to, like, can I leave Shroud now? And as I said, like, you use DP and use the stealth from Shroud, especially if you have a lot of enemies around you. Like, if you're in Shroud already, Shroud 2 and Pistol 5. And then you can stealth up. Obviously, if there's nothing nearby, you can Heartseeker. And, yeah. So yeah, and you can obviously Pistol 5 and then Shroud 2. And Shroud 3 if you want to, if there's no enemy nearby. But yeah, that's that's the guide. But if you have any questions, just ask. Yeah, that's it.